Hey, I'm PH and welcome to Good Bible Knowledge with PhD. In this set of videos, I want to study the words and works of Jesus to give a clear understanding and a deeper appreciation of the love of God expressed through this most important figure in human history. And I hope these videos will help you in your own spiritual journey in Jesus. Let's get started. One of the most familiar parables of Jesus is the story of the Good Samaritan, which is normally interpreted as an example of the willingness to show kindness to a stranger. However, as we look at the context, we will see that there is much more to this parable of Jesus. While Jesus was teaching the people, a religious leader who was a lawyer sought to test Jesus' knowledge of the law. He asked Jesus, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Instead of answering directly, Jesus responded with a question. "You are a lawyer. What does the law say?" The man answered, "You must love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself." To this Jesus said, "That is correct. Now go and do this." But the lawyer, in his own self-righteousness, wanted to justify himself and said, "Who is my neighbor?" The Pharisees and teachers of the law had often debated this very question, concluding that neighbor meant only good people that deserved help. This would therefore exclude Samaritans, as they were considered the worst of society and irredeemable because of their sin. Jews therefore would have no responsibility to help any Samaritan in need. Jesus confronted this hypocrisy by telling this familiar story. He said a man was traveling the dangerous route from Jericho to Jerusalem, and not surprisingly, he was attacked by robbers who beat him so badly that he was near death. And as he lay helpless, it just happened that a priest, a servant in God's temple, was traveling that same road. The priest, seeing this man in need, passed by on the other side of the road. Jesus continued, saying a member of the Levite tribe, who were set apart by God for holy service, passed along the same road, and he too offered no assistance. Jesus then said, a Samaritan, who was also traveling on that same road, saw the man in need and was filled with deep compassion. He cared for the man's wounds, put him on his own donkey, and brought him to the nearest inn, promising to pay for all his expenses. While the lawyer was still indignant at the mention of a Samaritan, Jesus asked him, "Which of these three was a neighbor?" Not wanting to admit it was the Samaritan, the lawyer said, "I suppose it is the one who showed mercy." Jesus then said, "Go and do likewise." This lawyer wanted to justify himself by narrowing the scope of who he was required to love by asking, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus redirected the discussion by saying that the real question is, are you being a neighbor? Jesus deliberately used the Samaritan as the center of the story to show that God does not look at the outward appearances, but accepts those who act with compassion and sacrifice, reflecting the true heart of God. Jesus was not saying that we could earn eternal life by doing good deeds. The lawyer believed he deserved eternal life because of his expert knowledge of the laws of God. Jesus, however, exposed the greater need to humble himself and seek God by faith. This parable of the Good Samaritan calls us to abandon our own efforts to earn righteousness through good deeds and calls us to an active faith in the death and resurrection of Jesus. And just as Jesus gave his life for all mankind, we too must reflect the heart of God to have compassion on everyone who is in need. Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge. We'll see you next time.